Alright guys, so finally let's set up this entire scene for render in Mantra. So I'm not going to spend too much time in Mantra as this is more of a Redshift tutorial, but it's still really relevant even though Solaris is out as well. Mantra is still going to be relevant for some time, but I just don't want to spend so much time on this section. So what I'm going to do is, mainly as far as our scene setup, we want to set up our camera and recache out our foam because that's totally reliant on our camera. So you're just going to want to get a position in the camera that you like. And first of all, I'm going to unhook the volume light so it's not going to be loading based on our pyro. And also, I like to completely disconnect our pyro so it's not loading anything up. Instead of disabling the cache, I just like to completely disconnect this, say view an empty null. I'm going to call this out. And it's just going to make sure that I'm not loading that at all. And so if we just kind of play forward, it's not the slowest, it's not the quickest either. But let's just kind of place our camera. And I've already animated a camera that I like, so I'm just going to paste that in the scene here and delete the old one and call this camera 1. So essentially, I've got a camera starting at frame 1 from here, and I've kept everything stock. I've kept a 50mm focal length, and I've animated starting from frame 30 to 200. Now you might remember our ocean foam needed about a second of run up, so I'm going to start the shot about a second or just over a second into the shot. I'm going to render from frame 30 to 200. That's just going to make sure that our foam is going to be totally up and running by the time we do that. So by also starting at frame 30, I'm going to go into our pyro import, and even though we're not looking at our pyro, I just want to offset 30 frames our cache. So I'm going to throw down a time shift, and in this time shift, when we do view it, we're going to start at 50 frames after. So if we just click on, I'm just going to type in -30. Now we're starting our shot 30 frames in the future, but the pyro is going to start at frame 0. But our foam is going to be fully emitted by that point. All right, so we get a frame that we like for our camera. What I want to do is go to the transform. I'm going to hold Alt and left click and key on key here. If we take a look at it, I just want to make sure to select all these keys and select Bezier handles. I just want to make sure to fade in and out of the camera to give it a better movement and not a linear movement. And so by the end, all I've done was zoom out and pick an angle that you like, and then key on these as well. So now we've got this movement, and for this I'll just turn off the ocean. I needed to see it to make sure that, you know, where we're actually sitting above the water. But now you can see we've got a nice kind of fade in and fade out from our angle from our camera. Alright, so we've got that camera set up. Let's keep setting everything up here. So I've also gone in and I've changed some of the placements of all these clouds. And I've just set this up based on our new camera. So what I've done is we've gone ahead and let's just, our scatter isn't pulling in our cache here. So whoops, you see our scatter was, it's set to $F4, which is trying to pull in a specific frame. We want to make sure to only pull in one frame of that scatter here, so that's why that was erroring. So let's just load that up, because it's going to try to load a different frame for every frame on the timeline. So we'll load that to get our scatter points back. And I've just kind of placed these clouds around, again, based on our new camera. So we have our hero cloud, which is off to the left, and here's the transform values that I gave it there. And Got our other hero cloud, which was, I put onto the back of the island because I figured if the sun was coming from the left, then maybe the cooler side of the mountain would be on the right side. So maybe that's where we get this kind of big cloud that's toward the back of it there. And I've given it these transform values here. And then our big main cloud up front here. And I've also got another cloud that is behind our other cloud here. And so I've given it those transform values. And then finally, our final overall cloud, I was hoping to cast some shadows, although I'm not sure we're going to see it. But if we were to have this maybe over to the right, we actually cast a big shadow on the water and on the mountain and that. So maybe we're not going to really see it. I'm not too concerned about that one. But aesthetically, I like the way this is looking now. So also, I've given all of our main clouds here the same density. So I've gone in and all given it the Clouds 2 shader. And the Clouds 2 shader, I've made sure the density was at a 0.03. So that's all going to be consistent. And then the atmosphere is still the really, really light Clouds atmosphere shader, which has got a density of 0.5. Because we changed the density in the node there. And then the Clouds scatter is the Clouds 1 shader. And all of our small kind of fog on the mountain is a density of 0.1. So we've changed the placement of those clouds and changed the density of that. So let's just go into our ocean surface here. We want to make sure with our new camera that we're going to cache out our ocean foam. So you see in our ocean foam here, we've got our near and our far plane. We want to make sure to recache these particles. We choose to displace the particles. And if we do that and just take a look, and the particles we baked out are right down here. And that's great. And that's going to go according to our camera angle. So we want to make sure to rebake out that foam. And once you're done that, we can keep bringing things forward here. Let's bring in our instances. I'm going to go back into wireframe. Let's unhide our instances. And looks like the cache here. Also, I'm having the same problem with the cache in that we're at a $F4. So it's trying to pull in a different frame. So it's trying to pull in cache frame 30 here. I just want a specific frame or a specific one frame cache. So scatter 1, or that's, yeah, scatter 1. So I'm just going to reload these up. That's scatter 2 and scatter 3. All right, so we replaced all that. All our instances are there, our clouds are there, our water's there, our terrain mountain is there. Finally, I just want to replace our environment light and sunlight. So I'm just going to, well, I don't want to replace it. I just want to put in an HDR image. So to do that, I want to deselect Enable Sky Environment Map. And that'll open up our environment map here where we can plug in an HDR. So navigate to the HDR image that comes with your files, your scene files. So I'm going to use this HDR sky. And for this, I'm going to keep the light intensity at 1. And I just want to transform it. I just want to have the sun off just to the left there. So we can keep kind of rotating this to find out where exactly that sun is up in the top left. So I'm going to try to kind of have it just off to the left to cast a nice shadow over to the right. And then the sunlight, what I want to do with the sunlight, I want to break these connections and manually use it as a key light and match it towards the sun in our HDR image. So I'm going to hold Control and Shift and click on our translate and rotate so we can break those connections. Now I'm just going to hold space F in the viewport so I can zoom into our sunlight there. And now I'm just going to manually rotate this to match the sun of our HDR. So we can pretty much just like that. So now the sun, our key light, is matching our HDR. Let's go back to our camera view. And all I really want to do with the sunlight is, well, we already tinted it a little bit yellow, just a touch. That's all I'm really going to do. So we've just hooked up an HDR and we've rotated the sun to match. So in the next lesson, let's take a render and start setting up just a couple of quick render passes.